Well, what do you talk about, life before or life after I started trace minerals to fall down? He actually recognized the change in his concentration in his life was so significant that it changed his life. And when we met with him, we spent about 2 hours having lunch, and these were not ADD children. They were brilliant. They're a grade and a half ahead now. I grabbed onto Dad. I didn't really physically. I just told him, dang, hold on, Dad. These children are brilliant. They're going to keep excelling. This pace of learning that they have is going to keep increasing. And you find this very possible with balancing minerals and correcting cellular energy problems. And it's just basic. So I hope those listening will push it back to the doctors. As I often wonder how it's going to happen. I don't know that this will become standard of care. But I think in the case of laparoscopic surgery, I remember back in the 80s when it started in the community hospital, not in the university. They should have been teaching it, right? And the resistance was huge because everybody thought, you couldn't see and it was dangerous and you needed to open everybody up. And what do we do today? Everything's laparoscopic. And so those were the leaders that were ahead of the curve back then, got criticized, severely condemned, and told they were dangerous and all kinds of things. And it ended up they were the pioneers. They took it back to the university. Some of them actually went to university and got appointments and taught. Most of the time, the professor of the university came and learned from them and then went back and improved it because it was becoming accepted. So we needed better technology. And that's what we have today, thank goodness. And so all this less invasive surgery, I started from those pioneers back in the 80s. And so we have to just understand that we have some problems out there. And I talked about the Thompson-Dobrighter principle, and let me just nail that really, really solid right now. Okay, so the Thompson-Dobrighter principle has to do with how minerals substitute each other according to the periodic table of the elements. So if you're not a chemistry buff, that's okay. It's really simple. I keep it right next to me. And I refer to it continuously because mostly I have it memorized, but there it is, the periodic table of the elements. And what's interesting, if you look at it, and it was as it was originally constructed, Dr. Dobrighter noticed that there was a mineral above and a mineral below that seemed to have similar biochemistry properties. And sometimes that mineral above and below and the one in the middle hadn't been discovered yet, hadn't been named. This was before Dr. Mendeloff in the periodic table of the elements in 1886. So this is 1829, and he noticed this relationship, and he thought it was precise. Well, it turned out it wasn't, so everybody kind of poo-pooed it. But the relationships that he described were significant because this is how the outer electron shells of all these minerals interact with each other. And in the human, if you're deficient, or if you get one of these minerals in there that can interfere with the mineral you need, you got a problem. And so we have a problem. We have a huge problem. It's called bromine. Bromine in our food chain, bromine in our flour, bromine in our jars and cans and bottles. It's everywhere. Bromine in our hot tubs. Bromine interferes with iodine, period, according to the Thompson-Dobrighter principle. It's been known since 1829. I'm not making it up, doctors. Okay, it's a principle of chemistry, right? Okay, so if the bromine substitutes for iodine, what's the problem? Cysts, PMS, endometriosis, hormone dysfunction, breast cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, thyroid cancer, ovarian epithelial cancer. They're all increased over 40% by bromine intake. And it's a huge, huge problem. I've been testing patients for it and when they have risk factors for many years. And recently I tested a patient who was avoiding it. Who was taking 50 milligrams a day of iodine every day. And after about a year of taking 50 milligrams of iodine a day, normal bromine levels should be less than probably 2. They say less than 5. I don't agree. Nevertheless, her bromine level went up to 75. And I'm like, dang, where in the heck is she getting it? And so the problem, what doctors and typically people don't understand, is all hormones in the human are iodized. And all hormones require copper to be produced, by the way. So all hormones are iodized, not just thyroid. So estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, everything is iodized. When I learned testosterone, when I learned that, I'm like, dang, how come they don't tell us that? So it turns out that bromine can substitute for iodine, especially if you're deficient or if bromine's in excess. So if bromine attaches where the iodine's supposed to be on your hormones, guess what? Dysfunction, cysts, cancer, everything bad. And what's really, really, really got me is this principle is so important that what I've declared, and their evidence is compelling for this. This is scientific evidence for what I'm saying is compelling. All autism is completely preventable. Seriously, I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of it. Pediatricians, I've tried. I contacted the authors of the article. They made the wrong conclusion. I tried to help them. They didn't want to listen to me because I'm some community doctor. I'm not some PhD scientist at some university teaching, and they didn't want to listen to me. Well, who else knows what I know? Raise your hand. I'm serious. Okay, so the Thompson-Doe principle is really simple. Those minerals substitute for each other according to what Dr. Domerrider showed. So fluorine and bromine can substitute for iodine and create havoc in human physiology. And where is that most important in our lifetime of all possibilities? The second trimester of pregnancy. So the authors showed a 50% increase in autism in mothers that used asthma inhaler medications that contain bromine or fluoride, but they blamed it on the beta-sympathomimetic medication. Why is that such a significant error? Well, it turns out 80% of the cells in the brain in the second trimester of pregnancy are gone at birth. They're not even there anymore. Dang, where'd they go? I'm like, that is so ridiculously amazing. It's unbelievable. Turns out they're like scaffolds for building the building. And so what happens is as all your dendrites and axons are forming and migrating throughout the brain, making all your connections, you need iodine. Without iodine, you have mental retardation. That's called cretinism. It was a problem in the 1920s, and because they went to table salt, and then instead of sea salt, because it was pretty white and didn't clump and get gooey like sea salt in the summertime in hot, humid climates. It's convenient, right? Microwave. Anyway, so what happened was all these moms started having mentally retarded children. And so in the first public health project ever being successful, they added iodine to the salt, and the cretinism went away. So they proved that iodine was necessary for brain development. This has been forgotten. It's critical. It's critical. And so the problem is not iodine. And people say, well, I have iodine in my prenatal. By the way, those are drugs and they're out of balance and they're actually kind of ridiculous. And so I try to stress everything whole food, but you can't take too much iodine. Iodine has no toxicity in the human at any level. Sorry, ignoring misses. Show cod butter or whatever fats, those things are just temporary changes in TSH when it's released from its bromine intoxication. It goes away within 24, 48 hours. But so iodine has no toxicity, so the problem is not iodine deficiency, it's bromine toxicity. So let's get that straight. And so we have these cancers of these organs reduced 40%. And what really upsets me, every time I see the commercial for Black women having a 50% increased risk of breast cancer and nobody's addressing it, I'm like, yeah, I am. Listen. Get on iodine, 40% reduction. If you want to reduce it by 2030, why don't you start next year? Why wait till 2030? Get everybody the heck on iodine, 12.5 milligrams a day. And by the way, if you're pregnant and your OBGYN doctor does not recommend 12.5 milligrams a day of iodine or more, they may be guilty of malpractice. This is published in 2001. It's in my book, Calcium Light 2, Chapter 6, with the references. They increase baby's IQ by 13.2 to 12.8 points by supplementing iodine during pregnancy. How come that's not routine? I don't know. I'm asking. I keep asking. What the heck is the matter with them? How come they can't read? Look this up. How come they can't learn about iodine? How come they don't realize that thyroid hormone can't work without it? Neither can any of the other hormones. And how come they don't understand that thyroid hormone doesn't work without potassium? I mean, seriously, endocrinologists, seriously. I find, the Stop the Thyroid Madness group, Jenny Bothorpe in Canada, she did a survey, almost 2,000 people. And according to the survey, the worst doctor you could see for the management of your hypothyroidism would be an endocrinologist. Did you know these guys are so ridiculously ignorant? In 2014, the chief of the committee, American Thyroid and American Endocrinology Association, stated that patients don't matter. Only the TSH matters. They said that in their article. And I quote, signs and symptoms of hypothyroidism only are associated with a 25% abnormal TSH TSH level. Therefore, the TSH is more important. So they're ignoring all the signs and symptoms, which was, part of the original Hippocratic practice of medicine that we've started from, signs and symptoms. Dang, who gave them the right to make the blood test more important than the patient? Seriously? And their level of ignorance is so profound. It's unbelievable. They don't know that you need potassium for thyroid to work. They don't understand the significance of thyroid antibodies. They don't understand thyroid can't work with selenium deficiency. They don't understand that the function and the importance of reverse T3 published in 1972. They can't look it up or something, I don't know, or don't want to take time to. You have to do is go to the references and keep going backwards. Google doesn't go back that far, so when you have a specific problem, you have to go after it. And so you got to go to the library and get in the stacks. And there's one international group that has some ability to go back a little bit farther. But anyway, maybe I can help us in the future. But I think it's just remarkable, the simplicity of what I'm teaching in the big picture and the overall importance of it. And so we have a whole bunch of books in the works. I have a publisher now, and so we have the Calcium Live 3, the third and final edition. I'm not doing any more Calcium Live books. But I had to incorporate this learning from Dr. Pollack, because it's like dipoles and zippers and the most important mineral. And I've been saying potassium's important and thyroid can't work without it for a long time, but I didn't realize that all cellular energy depended on it, all cellular hydration. And so we all need to know our interests are potassium. So if you want to go to aurorahealthandnutrition.com, like all one word typed together, Aurora, like the Northern Lights, healthandnutrition.com, you can actually order your own hair tissue mineral analysis if you don't have a doctor that will provide one for you. When you get the results, be sure and share it with your doctor, and please encourage him to listen and read our books. And when the Calcium Live 3 comes out, you'll have the dipole zippers and the potassium number 1, a little bit more detailed information about iron in the C molecule from what we've had before, and the importance of ferritin. Ferritin is the most important of all blood tests. The only blood test directly related to all death and disease and morbidity and mortality. The only one. Cholesterol is only 50% reliable. A recent study showed 40% of patients on statin drugs shouldn't be on them. And we know statin drugs increase your risk of dementia 252%. And I know people that are really happy when their cholesterol level's below 150, and I'm like, dang, your brain's 25% cholesterol, you're losing insulation. That's not a good thing, and that's probably why it increases dementia risk so much. So you should rethink your statin drugs. Make sure you're supporting your CoQ10. Make sure you correct your copper. You can't make proper cholesterol without copper. And by the way, I just started blending my salads. I don't know why that seems so complicated to patients. I take everything I would put in my salad bowl and I put it in my blender, and then I add spices. That's the key. You have to find the spices you like. When you find the spices, it gets so delightful. You can't stop doing it. You've got to find your spices. Seriously. Best example, when my sweetheart came to visit for the very first time in Alaska, I made my batch and it was too hot and spicy for her. And I'm like, dang, Robert, that her spices that are going to get her to like it, right?
Yeah.
So I remade the whole pitcher and I put all the spices out and I said, hey, or I add all those or whatever you want. We blended it. She loved it, and she didn't stop blending after that. What was amazing was I had the largest improvement in cholesterol numbers of any patient I've ever seen with any treatment ever, because you can't chew your vegetables in that small particle size. And so if you make it a really delightful, good carbohydrate, spicy drink, I find a little bit more water is good. It goes a little bit farther. You're still getting the same benefit. And it's sweeping your colon of bad fat and toxins. And interestingly, my HDL level keeps going up since I started blending. It went from 42 to 70 with 18 months of blending. Another 18 months, it went to 84. Remember, your HDL can't be too high. That's all your hormones and all your brain insulation comes from HDL cholesterol. It's good stuff. You can't heal without it.
And Doc, I'm thinking that we are almost of time, and I believe that through this conversation, I just learned a lot from you in terms of when it comes to nutrition and minerals. And in all honesty, I didn't know how much were minerals important. And through hearing from you, and I'm old, and it gives me more pleasure on just continuing on learning more about, as I've said earlier, that learning more about minerals, it's something that we don't look at. And so, at some point, I think there are some people that are gating the information of not getting out there, and also trying to avoid definitely your own information of getting to